Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 series, Can We Save the Oakland A's? And thus far in this 2034 season, we're doing a pretty good job saving the A's as we get to the month of August, just past the trade deadline. We are up 4.5 games on the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers in the AL West. And if the season were to end today, we would be the number 2 seed in the American League behind the White Sox, meaning that we would have a first round bye and avoid the dreaded wild card series, which we have been in for 3 years in a row as we try to reach the playoffs for the 5th time in the last 6 seasons. We have gotten pretty fortunate, and we've moved on from the wild card series each of the past 3 seasons, but clearly our preference would be to win the division and have one of the top 2 records in the American League so we can avoid a wild card series, set up our pitching staff exactly the way we want it, get a little bit of extra time for some banged up players to rest, and then hopefully face a team that will be a underdog to us in an American League Division Series. So holding on to one of the top 2 spots in the American League is certainly our goal as we begin the month of August here. We were very quiet in the trade market this year, especially for a team like ours that thinks and believes we are a contender this year. The only acquisition we made was a trade for Luis Heel. Didn't give up much to bring him on board. He could start for us in a pinch, but at this point, we've just made him a long reliever and a mop-up guy to see how he does in Oakland. Sent down the youngster Rodolfo Quintanilla, who we had brought up not all that long ago, to make room on the roster for Heel. And then besides that, we are using our farm system and our organizational depth to take the place of trades when it comes to bolstering our roster this year. We have promoted Alejandro Landin, international free agent signing from 2027, number 53 prospect in baseball. Very good personality, a good infielder who can play second, third, and short at a pretty good level. He put up a 113 WRC plus for us in AAA this year. And the switch hitting second baseman is going to take over as our starter against right-handed pitching. Our other switch hitting second baseman, Sergio Estrada, is going to stay in the lineup against left-handed pitching. Even though they're both switch hitters, Landin is a bit better against right-handed pitching, and Estrada is a bit better against left-handed pitching. So hopefully this will allow us to maximize our offense while also having a extra good defender on the team for any time that the brilliant young shortstop Andy Toribio needs a day off. To make room for Landin, we sent Kevin Stubblefield down to AAA. Kind of teased this in the last episode that he could be someone whose spot was in jeopardy. And just have to be honest, over the last 2 seasons, Stubblefield has been a below-average major league player. And this year in particular, the right-hander has been playing primarily against left-handed pitching. And if he's not delivering good offense with his defensive limitations and the fact he's only playing against lefties, he's a guy whose roster spot is going to be in jeopardy. Still has 1 option year left after this year. Think he could still have an important role for us next year, given that we are likely to move on from starting first baseman Brian Ramos, and would expect to see him in September. And it's not inconceivable that when we typically go to 12 pitchers and 14 position players for the playoffs, that he could even end up on the playoff roster. But right now, we're going to give Landin a chance. The other move that we made is we brought back Bobby Cabral. Talked about Cabral a lot in the last episode. He's having a brutal year with a 39 WRC plus, and he was in a cold streak about 2 weeks ago. We sent him down. He's been in AAA Las Vegas, where he has snapped out of his funk, hitting 367 with a 1.439 OPS. His ratings are what they've always been, and he's a guy who's averaged over 40 homers and over 100 ribbies for us his first 2 seasons in Oakland. He's clearly not going to come anywhere near either of those numbers this season, but it is very conceivable that with 8 homers and 24 ribbies as of August 1st, he could top both of those numbers over the last 2 months of the season compared to what he's put up over the first 4 months of the season. And hopefully having Burner Cabral back in the lineup will help jumpstart this offense. To make room for him, we sent down Byron Brain. He's a little banged up with hamstring soreness, but he's been playing through that. He did fine with us, hit 286 with 2 homers in 14 at-bats. Those are the positives. The negative is that he struck out 8 times in 14 at-bats. Still put up a ridiculous 230 WRC plus. Another guy that we could certainly see in the month of September. But given that he's a left-handed hitter, we ultimately decided to send him down. And we're going to continue playing Bob Day every day. And Bob Day is actually going to... we're going to continue playing Bob Day against right-handed pitching. And Bob Day is actually going to get a chance to play every day because he's going to play left field against left-handed pitching. Bob Day, at this point, has put up a 114 WRC plus in 46 at-bats, not striking out nearly as often as Brain does. Clearly his WRC plus isn't where Brain's is either, but Day is a more versatile defensive player, and for the time being, we're going to give the 26-year-old a chance to see what he can do in the lineup every day. As I noted, it's very likely we'll see Stubblefield and Brain and possibly even Quintanilla back on this roster in September when we do September call-ups. Hopefully we'll get the outfielder Elliot Bonello back relatively soon, and then would expect our center fielder Luis Lara to be back right around September roster expansion as well. So we know what the goal is, to win the division and have one of the top 2 records in the American League. We've got a road trip coming up to start off the month against the Yankees and the mighty Royals. Back home for Minnesota and the Rangers. On the road for a long West Coast swing. Dodgers, Seattle, and Colorado. Back home for the Angels and a couple with San Diego. And then back on the road right before September roster expansion at the Los Angeles Angels. And the first week of August ended up being a 500 road trip, but we did 500 the easy way, beat up on a mediocre Yankees team, sweeping them in the Bronx, but then we got swept by a good Kansas City team who we could conceivably be seeing again at some point in the playoffs. Back home against the Twins and the Rangers. Hopefully we can have a successful homestand here. And we won the first game of the homestand against the Twins, so good to stop the losing streak at 3 games there. Elliot Bonello is also back from the torn rotator cuff that's had him sidelined since April. We're going to put him on a rehab assignment for likely several days in AAA since he's been out for almost 4 months, I think. Definitely over 3 months. And hopefully we'll have him back soon. We'll have to make another interesting roster move, but it would be nice to get Bonello's bat back into the lineup. We had big expectations for him and think that he can be an important member, potential number 2 hitter for us against right-handed pitching in particular, and hopefully help us generate a bit more offense than we have been this year. And our Oakland A's continue to play incredible baseball at the Coliseum. You may remember at the end of July we had a 9-1 homestand, and we just completed a 6-0 homestand. Swept both the Twins as well as, even more importantly, the Rangers. So after that sweep of the Rangers, we sit here on August 14th with an 8.5 game lead in the American League West. At 72 and 47, we are 5 games ahead of Toronto for the second best record among a division winner in the American League. So achieving our goals that we outlined at the start of this episode is going pretty well here, 2 weeks into August. Jake Ortega continues to be second in the American League in hitting. Juan Higuera has been up in the 380 range all year. Looks like he's out with a concussion now, though. That explains why he's been in that 380 range all year every time I look at him, because he has been out since... I could have seen that on the screen that I was just at, obviously. He's been out since... actually, only since July 26th, so only the past 3 weeks. But at some point, if that becomes a big issue for Higuera, Ortega might pass him in the race if Higuera doesn't have enough at-bats to qualify for the title at some point. So would have thought that there was no way he was going to make up a 27-point deficit, but with Higuera being banged up, maybe when all is said and done, he won't qualify for the batting title. Ortega now leading the league in batter war, having a brilliant season. He's off to a fantastic start in his major league career after we picked him 3rd overall in 2029. 351 average, 38 doubles, 4 triples, and 17 home runs this year. Stolen 21 bases, has an OPS of over 1,000, and that league best WAR. He won Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. He's been an all-star each of the last 2 seasons, and he was a Wild Card Series MVP last year. Certainly seems like he has a chance at getting some MVP votes this year. Still nobody on the top of the pitchers list for our Oakland A's, but overall the pitching continues to perform very well. We're first in the American League in runs allowed. Still a very mediocre offense, however, ranking 11th in runs scored. And Bonello's now played 4 games in AAA, 4 for 15, all singles. So certainly not lighting it up, but that's probably about enough to shake the rust off. So it may be time to look for an opportunity to get Mr. Bonello back into our lineup. And we're going to send Juan Acevedo, the left-handed outfielder we signed out of the independent leagues this past offseason. He's hit a bit better of late to get his batting average up to 218. That being said, he's still a left fielder who's put up a 69 WRC plus across 239 at-bats for us this year. Still think he may end up being a useful player down the line for us, but we're going to give him a little more seasoning in AAA and get Mr. Bonello onto the Major League roster here in mid-August. And our managerial expenses are going to go up significantly next season. Manager Kip Wells, who's been with us for 5 years in the majors now, contract was going to run out, and all he has done in the 5 full seasons that he's been with us in the majors is lead us to the playoffs 4 out of 5 times, trying to get us into the playoffs for a 5th time in 6 years. This season, team has really turned around since he came on board. He's legendary with development, excellent with mechanics, excellent in handling aging, and he's also got good relationships with the major league team. So felt it was important to keep Kip Wells around, even though his cost is going to be much higher than we've typically been spending for personnel here in Oakland. We are continuing our good play Took 2 out of 3 on the road against the Dodgers, and now we've got 4 in a row against Seattle to finish off this week. And our A's continue rolling along. We swept the 4-game series in Seattle. So 2 games left on this road trip in Colorado, and then we're home for the Angels and Padres and back on the road for the Angels before the end of the month. The lead in the division is now up to 9, and we are 5.5 up on the Blue Jays for the second best record among division leaders in the American League. Ortega making an even stronger case for MVP now. The Kansas City player, unfortunately, looks like he is still out with the concussion, so he doesn't have enough at-bats to qualify for the batting title at this point. Ortega could be on the way to win his first batting title, second in the league in OPS, and he's got a 1-win advantage in batter WAR over Jackson Holliday at this point. So a brilliant season from Ortega. Our closer, Luke Little, now ranks third in saves with 31, but you can see he's injured, diagnosis pending with an arm injury from a couple of days ago, so that could be a significant hit for us if there's anything serious that develops there. And very bad news for a team that intends to be competing for a World Series title, but our rental closer is done for the year. Luke Little going to be out for 2 to 3 months with a torn triceps. I guess, in theory, if we make a run to the World Series, maybe we'll get lucky and he'll be back for part of that series. But Little likely to finish the year 6-4 with 31 saves, put up a 2.66 ERA over 47 1/3 innings, 1.6 WAR, 1.58 ERA plus, a 69 FIP minus. Really nice year from him. His contract extension demands have come down a bit to 3 years at $14 million. We could certainly get him for a bit less than that, but now particularly coming off of this injury, not going to make any long-term commitments to someone in their mid-30s at this point until we know more about what he may or may not look like on the other side of this significant injury. So that one will definitely hurt because there's not any way we're going to pick up anyone in the trade market who can replace him at this point. And we've moved all-star reliever Jeremy Scholl into the closer role. He's had a really nice year for us, a 1.88 ERA over 52 2/3 innings pitched. As we mentioned, he was named an all-star for the first time this year, and we are going to give Scholl an opportunity to take over for a little as our closer. We brought Rodolfo Quintanilla back up from AAA, and Levi Sterling has been pitching a bit better since we moved him out of the stopper role, but with a 4.41 ERA on the season, we're going to give Scholl the first opportunity with his 1.88 ERA to take that role instead of Sterling. And we've had some choppier results over the past week. We split 2 games in Colorado, lost 2 out of 3 at home to the Angels, and then we just split 2 at home against San Diego. Off day today, and then we will be at the Angels tomorrow. Luis Lara is ready to come off the IL, so we'll probably try to give him a couple of days in AAA, and then presumably he'll be back on the team in September. And we lost the first game of our road trip at the Angels to finish off the month of August. That being said, although we weren't playing as well at the end of the month as we were in the middle of the month, 18-9 record, the 18 wins, the most we've had in any month this year, 17 or 18 wins each of the last 4 months, so we have just been a consistently very good team. Seems like we've gotten a bit lucky this year. 81-53 is 4 games above Pythagorean expectations. Still very mediocre, 11th in runs scored, but still outstanding first in runs allowed. Our bullpen ERA has been the best in the AL all year. We've been top of the line in terms of defensive efficiency and zone rating most of the season as well. And our starters have really picked it up over the last few months, now ranking 5th in American League in ERA for our starters. with an ERA of under 4. We were up above 5 not all that long ago, so the pitchers have been doing very well over the last couple of months. And before we check in on the 4 players we're adding to our Major League roster, we'll check in on the standings. Our lead in the AL West has shrunk to 7.5 games over the Rangers at this point. Our lead on the Blue Jays for the second best record in the AL among a division winner is 6 games. So still feel like we're pretty well positioned to hopefully guide this team to the second seed in the American League. We're 4 games behind the White Sox for the top seed. Looks like Juan Higuera is back from that concussion, and he now has enough at-bats to qualify again. So he's ahead of Ortega by 10 points in the race for the AL batting title. Ortega still leading the league in OPS and batter WAR. Ortega with an outside chance at getting to a 10 batter WAR this year, which would be quite an impressive season. As we sit here, 134 games into the season, quick look at the schedule for the month of September. We've got the Angels and the Mariners on the road, followed by 3 games in Cleveland as well. That's certainly the longest road trip we've got left. Then we're home for some division games against Seattle and Houston, back on the road in the division at Texas and the Angels, and then home against Seattle and home against Texas in the final 3 games of the year, going to October 1st. Hopefully we'll have the division sewn up by then, but depending on what happens between us and Texas in that 3-game road trip and the rest of the month, it's conceivable that those final games in September and October 1st could be for the division. Clearly with a 7.5 game lead, our hope is that they won't matter, but it is not inconceivable. Texas is a proud defending World Series champion. Starting with the pitching, we did bring Josh Mangano up to be a 14th pitcher on the roster for us here in the month of September. You may remember Mangano, second-round draft pick out of Cary Christian High School in 2028. The 23-year-old will be making his major league debut this year. He was 6-1 with a 3.83 ERA in Double-A. Came back up to AAA, and he went 9-3 with a 3.96 ERA. The stuff, not particularly impressive. Movement average and his control is going to be an issue. Has a nice fastball, a decent slider, and an okay change. There's probably guys who are a little better than him in AAA, but given that Mangano is a former second-round draft choice with only 1 option year left after this season, figured it made sense to see what he can do at the major league level. Thinking about some other pitchers before we talk about the 3 position players that we brought up. Check in on what Mason Miller has been doing over the last month. And obviously not going to be as good as he was in July when he was 5-0 with a 0.98 ERA, but still was 2-1 with a 2.33 ERA in the month of August. So Miller has really turned his season around after that rough start. Leads the team with 12 wins, 12-8 with a 4.58 ERA, striking out almost 10 batters per 9 innings this year. So he is having a solid year in what may be his last season in Oakland. Mangano, when we do set his position as a reliever, which is what he'll be doing for us, that at least gets his stuff up to average, although the control still may very well be an issue. And before we talk about the 3 guys that we have brought back up, check in on a couple of guys. Alejandro Landin has been up for a month now, hitting just .210. Does have 4 doubles, a triple, and a couple of homers. 81 WRC plus, but he has been better than replacement level. So given us a little more than we had gotten from Estrada over the course of the year. Now let's check in on Bobby Cabral, and we've had some various opinions on what Cabral may be doing for us down the stretch. Alkshy, like me, is trying to be optimistic about what we might get from Cabral. Fake name, very negative, very down, laughing about the fact that Cabral is going to finish the year with like a 65 WRC plus, which he very well may. But if he gets there, it could mean that he's got a strong finish to the season. And yeah, he's got it up to a 63 WRC plus already, fake name. So I think your negativity will prove to be too negative when the season is done. And Cabral for the month of August for us, batting average only 247, but with 8 homers and 20 ribbies in the month of August. He's put up a 140 WRC plus since he came back, and certainly helping generate some more offense. Still going to be a rough season in the context of what he did for us the first couple years he was with us, but good to see him playing a bit more towards his ratings rather than that just brutal start he had this season. A couple of the names that we have brought back up are familiar. We talked about Luis Lara. He only played 1 game in AAA. He is now wrecked as far as his injury proneness, but he'll be back in as our leadoff hitter and center fielder against right-handed pitching. We also brought Kevin Stubblefield back, as he always does. He's crushing it in AAA with a 175 WRC plus, although he continues to not be incredibly impressive at the major league level. Not bad, but not good. Bob Day has started to come back to earth. He was playing every day in the month of August. Batting average down to 247 and an 86 WRC plus on the year. So Day actually gets out of the lineup against both righties and lefties to make room for Lara in center field, and then Stubblefield in the designated hitter spot. And then the final guy we brought up was catcher Dave Ackley, and we're actually going to play Ackley every day against left-handed pitching. Ackley is a guy who we picked in the 5th round in 2028. Not my four-ply brought up the question in the comments to the last episode, where did Ackley come from? And you may remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, it seemed like we were picking a couple of catchers kind of in the middle rounds in every draft, just hoping we'd hit on somebody. And it's taken a while with Ackley, but it seems like we have hit on him. Good defensive catcher who's durable with plus contact and plus home run power. He lingered in rookie ball for us for parts of 4 seasons, and by his 3rd season in rookie ball, he wasn't even a starter for us anymore, hitting just 233 with 3 starts and only 43 at-bats on the season. But at the age of 21 in rookie ball, he just kind of figured stuff out. We promoted him to high A at the end of that year. He kind of got trapped on the roster the last couple of years, spent each of them in Double A, over 25 homers, over 100 ribbies with a batting average of over 300 each of those years. Finally got him up to AAA this year, and he's been even better, hitting 351, 42 homers, and 107 ribbies, 177 WRC plus with a ridiculous 7.4 WAR. So with Ackley on board, and the fact that we've got Chris Laughlin, who we picked up to be catcher for us this year, our backup. He's been respectable as a backup catcher. And then Jaden Boakai, who is a guy that we picked the year before in the 9th round as a catcher, having a much better year this year than he did as a rookie, hitting 272. He's got 11 homers and a 95 WRC plus with his really good defense. We are now very young at catcher, and with Ackley and Boakai particularly, I think we're potentially very good at catcher for the next few years. Might be time to think about trying to lock up one of those guys for the long term, although I'm guessing with Boakai having a good year, he might be looking for some decent money. Yeah, he's looking for an average of 9 million over a year, with 13 million for the free agent years right now. I'm guessing Ackley's demands are also going to be pretty high just based on his skill set. Yeah, he's looking for 9 years at 10 million a pop. So given that we've got these guys for the minimum and their arbitration years for the time being, I don't think there's any rush to sign them to those kind of contract numbers. So as the month of September begins, hopefully no more significant injuries. Losing closer Luke Little, certainly not great for our prospects when we do get to the postseason. And thinking about getting to the postseason, our magic number of 21 is as small as any division leaders in baseball. So hopefully we will have the AL West and a first round bye locked up before that final series of the year against the Texas Rangers. And we'll also be following whether Ortega can overcome a 10-point deficit in the batting race to win a batting title this year. And we went 1-3 in the first series of the month. Actually, that's not true because the series actually started at the end of August. So we actually went we did go 1-3. I said it the right way, even though I was looking at the fact that we were 1-2 in the month of September. Meant to mention, and some of you may have seen this, that Ortega, not surprisingly, was the AL batter of the month in August. Hit .385 with 8 homers and 25 ribbies. Unfortunately, he's now 23 points behind Higuera in the batting race, as the young first baseman Juan Higuera just looks like an absolute force at the plate. And unfortunately, things are not going well here in this month of September. We lost 2 out of 3 on the road in Seattle, and now we've lost 2 out of 3 at Cleveland to finish off that long road trip. Hopefully we can have a nice homestand here because things are very quickly getting very interesting in the division. Texas is 9-1 in their last 10, and they've closed the gap to us to just 2.5 games. We still are up 6 on the Blue Jays for the second best record among any division leader. But obviously, if Texas gets past us, that's going to put us right back into the mix to be only a wild card team this year. So, as we've talked about, they won the division last year. They knocked us out of the playoffs last year, and they won the World Series last year. So they are a prideful defending champion team, and we're going to need a good homestand to hopefully give ourselves a little bit of a buffer against them before the 3 games on the road in Texas next week. And it's been a rough homestand so far. We took the first 2 against Seattle, but we've then lost 3 in a row to Seattle and Houston. 2 left against Houston, but as we sit here on September 16th, the lead over the Rangers is down to 2. The lead over the Blue Jays is down to 4.5, and our magic number is still 13. We've also got an injury issue to deal with. Alejandro Landin, day-to-day for a week with a concussion, but it's got a moderate impact on his hitting, throwing, and running. We're just going to put him right onto the IL for 10 days. We do have Estrada who can play second base every day for us, and we also did just get Julio Del Campo to come off of the IL. I believe the season is probably... Actually, Las Vegas still might be playing in the playoffs right now, so they are still playing. But at least that'll give us an extra glove, and we'll get another chance to see what Del Campo can do for us at the major leagues over the next week and a half. And we lost 2 more against Houston, so after 4 straight months of great baseball, we're kind of playing in September the way we played in April, and we've now got our final road trip of the regular season ahead of us, 3 at Texas, 3 at the Angels, And as we get ready for that series, we are now in a tie in the AL West with the Rangers. Both us and the Rangers still 3.5 up on Toronto for the second best record among a potential division winner. But the drop off if we lose the division is pretty significant because the Royals have the second best record in the league. So the team that wins the division most likely will have a first round bye. The team that loses the division most likely is going to be on the road for a wild card series against a potential close to 100 win Royals team. So these next 3 games against Texas are going to be critical. Ortega's still hitting .353, but doesn't look like he's going to catch Juan Higuera. Second in the league in OPS, first in the league in batter WAR. But things have gotten way too close, way too fast for our struggling Oakland A's. Taking a look at the team statistics, we're still 11th in runs scored. We have slipped to second in runs allowed. Basically, we're just kind of normalizing our record a bit. We're only 2 games above Pythagorean expectations right now, but 5-11 in September is even worse than we got off to that poor start in March and April. So 3 huge games on the road right now against Texas, and then it is very conceivable, unless one of us sweeps this series here in Texas, that final 3 games at home against Texas at the end of September to October 1st will ultimately determine who wins the division. And given that we'll have to have all hands on deck for that, if we fail to win the division, we're probably not going to have our pitching set up optimally for that potential wild card series. So a season that was looking very special just a couple of weeks ago has really started to come off the rails here in the month of September. And when it rains, it pours. Colt Keith with a knee contusion. Not the end of the world, but it is going to have a moderate impact on his running for the next couple of weeks. He's put up a 141 WRC plus for us this year, his best year since 2031. I don't think we can afford to have him out of the lineup, so hopefully he won't do anything to mess it up. And hopefully we get a lot of home runs and singles from him where he doesn't need to run all that hard. And we lost the first game against Texas, getting shut out 6-0. Rough outing for Jackson Ferris, our erstwhile ace. Allowed 6 hits, 1 walk, 5 earned runs over 5 2/3 innings. Pushed his ERA up to close to 4 on the season. And we are now officially a wild card team, 5 up on the Orioles for the last wild card spot. But the 7-ish game lead that we had in the division not that long ago has completely evaporated in less than 3 weeks. This could go down as one of the great collapses in baseball history. And we ended up getting swept on the road at Texas, so we are now 3 games back with only 9 games to go. Our lead on the Angels now for the final wild card spot is 4.5 games. But as we've talked about, we have, in a matter of days, gone from feeling pretty confident that we'd have a first-round bye to, in all likelihood, being on the road for a best-of-3 wild card series. So things have definitely deteriorated rapidly and dramatically for our Oakland A's. And this promising season continues to spiral. We did stop the 8-game losing streak in the first game at the Angels, but then we've lost 2 more since then. So 6 left in the season against Seattle and Texas, and we are 3 games behind the Rangers, 1-9 in our last 10, not helping matters at all. Only 3.5 up on the Angels for the final wild card spot, and only 4 up on the Orioles for missing the playoffs entirely. Fortunately, Seattle is the worst team in the American League. Hopefully, we can get healthy against them over the next 3 days, at least clinch the playoff spot, and maybe put ourselves in a position where those final 3 games against Texas will matter. And unfortunately, the season continues to spiral. We lost to Seattle to start off the series. Mason Miller out likely for the year with forearm tendonitis unless we make a long run in the playoffs. He did end up struggling a bit in the month of September. Not shocking given that this whole team has fallen apart in the month of September. So he's going to finish 12-12 with an ERA of just over 5 in his final season in, well, what will likely be his final season in Oakland. But Miller going on the 15-day IL, another loss to Seattle. Fortunately, the Rangers lost, so there's still only 3 ahead of us. But 3 up on the Orioles, 3.5 up on the Angels now, and our magic number remains at 3. So we've brought Josh Teeples, another replacement-ish level type guy, up. He is a guy who has never actually pitched in the majors for us since we picked him up in a trade almost 3 years ago. He did spend some time, I believe, on the 60-day IL. I can't remember whether that was with us or the Baltimore organization, but Teeples will get to actually hopefully pitch over these next 5 days, as we'll see if we can sneak this team into the playoffs. If we do need a starter, Caden Dana, who's had a really nice year for us out of the bullpen, started 16 games for us a couple years ago and was bad, but with Miller out, we're going to give Dana a chance because it's conceivable we may be asking Dana to take his spot in the rotation, not just for the last 5 games of this season, but potentially next year if we do move on from the veteran Mason Miller. And we did take the final 2 games of the home series against Seattle, so we've stabilized things a bit. We have at least clinched a playoff spot now, as we are up 4 on the Orioles for the final wild card spot. 2 behind the Rangers, so we basically are going to need to be perfect. You may remember we lost a lot of games to the Rangers early this season. So my hunch is we've got a losing record against them for the year. 7-9. But that does mean we still need to be perfect over these final 3 games, being down 2. Because if we go 2-1, we're going to finish a game behind them. So we've got to be perfect to be able to upend the Rangers in the West this year. Looks pretty likely that they are going to be back-to-back division champions. They beat us by 9 last year, so we're closer this year than we were a year ago, but still very much looking like we are going to be on the road against the second-best team in the American League. The Royals and White Sox now in a flat-footed tie with the best record in not just the AL Central, not just the American League, but all of baseball. And whoever finishes second in the AL Central will in all probability be hosting us in a wild card series. And we've lost the first game of the final series of the regular season to Texas, so that means we are out of it for the division. So at this point, we're just going to try to set up the rotation. So we'll have the best pitchers possible going for us in what will likely be a wild card series against the Royals. And we split the final 2 games of the year with Texas, ended up winning on the final day of the season 3-2. So that got us to 90 wins, but still an incredibly disappointing finish to this season. We ended up losing the division by 3 games. Jake Ortega finished second in the batting race, second in the league in OPS, but did lead the league in batter WAR for us. Jackson Ferris ended up third in the American League in strikeouts, but things have really taken a significant turn for the worse here in the month of September. We did get into the playoffs for the 5th time in the last 6 seasons and the 4th year in a row, so that is positive given that we still have the lowest budget in baseball and the second lowest player payroll, but the way that we completely collapsed in the month of September is pretty distressing. 8-19 in the month of September as we completely fell apart. Ended up 11th in the league in runs scored and 2nd in the league in runs allowed. So as we try to prepare for the mighty Kansas City Royals and a wild card series, we're going to be very dependent on hopefully our pitching and our defense coming through for us. So the regular season is over. Feels pretty hollow, quite honestly, for a 90-win season and a 4th straight trip to the playoffs. It got real ugly in the month of September, and the hope is that we can somehow pull this team together to get a win in a wild card series for a 4th consecutive season. But it is going to be a tough matchup for us. The Royals, one of only 200-win teams in all of baseball. They've been one of the top teams in baseball for the last several years. We were 500 against them, 3-3 this year, so certainly could have done worse against them. But it's hard to feel a lot of confidence about this Oakland A's team right now with the way we've played in the month of September. And we'll find out if we're able to shake ourselves out of this funk in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.